I was a border guard, an elite soldier of the Arcadian People's Union, stationed at the front line in the gray zone. Being assigned there was considered an honor. At least, that's what people said. To be selected, you had to pass 3 evaluations. First, bloodline. 3 generations without a single traitor. Second, loyalty. You couldn't miss a single question on the ideological examination. Third, physical and mental strength. A 72-hour fasting march. Mock drills where you reported on comrades, torture simulations. I passed everything. At 23, I became part of the gray zone. My parents cried. I couldn't tell if they were crying from pride or fear. The gray zone was a military demarcation area bordering the frontier, 50 meters wide. Beyond that was the free world. We were taught to call it contaminated land, a place ruled by chaos and corruption. We were the shield protecting that boundary. 16-hour shifts, 4 hours of sleep, meals at designated times, in designated portions. Private conversations were forbidden. Letters were censored. Phone calls recorded. Surveillance cameras were installed everywhere except the bathrooms. We were watched 24 hours a day. But we adapted. No, we had to adapt. The comrades I served with became like brothers. Especially 2 men, Minhyuk and Seongwoo. Minhyuk was 2 years older than me. Quiet, but when he cracked a joke, everyone laughed. Seongwoo was my peer, the fastest at disassembling and reassembling rifles. We slept in the same barracks, ate at the same table. But we couldn't trust each other. No, we weren't allowed to. Internal Regulation Number 7. If you discover ideological deviation in a comrade, report immediately. Failure to report meant punishment for the same crime. So we observed each other while smiling. We listened while speaking. That was survival. One night during shift change, Minhyuk spoke from atop the watchtower. "What do you think is out there?" I didn't answer. That kind of question was dangerous. Minhyuk didn't speak again. But that silence frightened me more. 3 weeks later, Minhyuk disappeared. There was no official announcement. One morning, his bed was simply empty. No one asked questions, but everyone knew. A week later, we received an assembly order. A platform had been erected in the center of the training ground. And on it stood Minhyuk. His hands were bound behind him, a gag in his mouth. The political officer raised a megaphone. "This man has been contaminated by reactionary ideology and attempted to betray the homeland." Minhyuk's eyes looked at us. Those eyes held neither anger nor sadness. They were simply empty. A gunshot rang out. Minhyuk fell. We applauded. It was in order. That night, I couldn't sleep. Neither could Seongwoo. We lay in the darkness with our eyes open. Seongwoo whispered, "Hung, yeah, will we end up like that someday?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. From that moment, something changed. We didn't speak, but we both knew. We had to escape this place. Or die like Minhyuk. But escape was nearly impossible. The gray zone was a meticulously designed prison. 247 surveillance cameras. 18 light towers. 3 minefields. Patrol units crossed paths every 15 minutes. And the biggest problem, family. If we fled, our remaining families would be dragged to camps. 3 generations punished under collective responsibility. That was this country's law. So I hesitated. My parents' faces appeared in my mind. I heard my younger sister's laughter. But I couldn't forget Minhyuk's empty eyes either. And I realized something. We were already dead. Alive, but dead inside. If that was true, I wanted to live. Just once. Really live. Seongwoo and I prepared for 2 weeks. Not with words. With glances, gestures, silence. We memorized the shift schedules. We identified surveillance camera blind spots. We calculated the blinking patterns of the light towers. And we discovered it. Thursday, 3:22 a.m. Exactly 7 minutes when a gap appeared. The moment when patrol units A and B changed shifts. When cameras 3 and 5 switched directions. When the light towers entered maintenance mode for those 7 minutes. That was all we had. 7 minutes, 420 seconds. Within that time, we had to run 50 meters. cross the barbed wire, and pass through the minefield. Failure meant death. Success meant our families would die. Still, we decided to go. Thursday night arrived. I worked my shift as usual. So did Seongwoo. We didn't look at each other. 3:15 a.m. I excused myself to use the bathroom. Seongwoo stepped outside under the pretense of equipment inspection. We met below the eastern fence. No words were spoken. 3:21 and 50 seconds. Seongwoo nodded. I nodded back. 3:22. We ran. Through darkness, through silence, through terror. My heart felt like it would burst. My breathing was too loud. 10 meters. 20 meters. The barbed wire appeared. Seongwoo climbed first. I pushed his feet upward. Then I climbed too. The wire's edge tore my hand. Blood flowed, but I felt no pain. No, I had no time to feel pain. 30 meters. The lights came on. Stop. A shout erupted from the megaphone. We didn't stop. Gunfire. Dirt exploded. Seongwoo stumbled. I'm okay, he shouted. We kept running. 40 meters. More gunfire. This time it grazed past me. I heard the wind splitting beside my ear. 45 meters. A flare lit up the sky. Night became day. Our shadows stretched long. Open fire. Machine gun sounds. The ground exploded. I dropped. Seongwoo dropped. We crawled. Knees tore. Fingernails broke. Still we crawled. 48 meters. 49 meters. And then, the boundary line. A single line drawn in white paint. We crossed it. The gunfire stopped. The lights went out. Silence returned. We collapsed right there. Faces buried in the ground, gasping for breath. We had survived. We were alive. But there was no joy. Seongwoo was crying. Silently, shoulders shaking. I cried too. We lay there for a long time. On the land of freedom, bearing the weight of guilt. 3 days later, we underwent refugee screening. 6 months later, we received resettlement support. A year later, I lived in a small apartment. Seongwoo moved to another city. We didn't contact each other, because seeing each other reminded us of that night, and of the people we left behind. 2 years later, I heard the news. Through a defector support organization. My family had been dragged to a camp. So had Seongwoo's family. Parents, younger sister, grandmother. Everyone. That night, I couldn't eat anything. For days, I couldn't sleep. I had survived, but I didn't feel alive. Now I live here, in this land of freedom. No one watches me. I can say what I want. Go where I want. But every night, I dream. I dream of my sister reaching through the barbed wire. Oppa, why did you leave me? I can't answer. In my dreams, I just keep running. I can't forget Minhyuk's empty eyes either. The moment he fell, the gunshot I heard, and the sound of our applause. Freedom has weight. People don't really understand how heavy freedom is, what you must lose to gain it. I gained freedom, but in exchange, I lost everything. Family, past, peace. Still, do I regret it? I can't answer that question. If I say I regret it, I'm sorry to Minhyuk. If I say I don't, I'm sorry to my family. So I just live. Every morning I open my eyes, until I close them at night. I try to live as best I can. That's all I can do. The duty and punishment of a survivor.